Good morning, my friends. Today, it's still snowing out. It's not as nice as it was yesterday. Yesterday it was kind of like a nice little white sheet of white. It's still, snowing pretty hard, but it doesn't have that same luster as it did yesterday. I think it's just because it's a little bit warmer today, so most of that snow's sort of already melted and sort of mixing in with the slush and whatnot. Um, but it's nice we had like a pretty solid November with snow. I haven't seen something like this since I was a kid. So um, overall, I can't say that much is going on in my life. I worked last night. I worked tonight. So overall, things are okay. Um, I'm going to be talking a little bit about derealization today. Derealization is it's more of a symptom, I guess. I don't know what it's actually classified technically as, but it's one of these things where you basically uh, dissociate, disassociate, whatever, from the outside world to the point where you're sort of in this little box of reality where you're sort of thinking or you're sort of watching your life go by, and it's like as if it's not even really coherent. It's not really happening to you. It doesn't feel real. And I also had a little bit of depersonalization. They're both kind of linked. It's both all kind of connected to the same sort of things. Um, Generally developing from anxiety or something I think was more like bottled up anxiety that I was sort of experiencing, and it sort of came out that way. And that's what I sort of see these things as. It's a lot of stuff and a lot of issues with your life that are sort of coming out in different ways. And this came out in derealization. I wasn't, experiencing my life the same way anymore. It was sort of like I was watching it go by, and it was a very scary thing for me, especially at that time. I was around 16 and never really experienced anything like that before. Yeah, it was definitely off-putting, to say the least. And explaining it to people, it's very difficult. It takes me a long time because it's something that's, unless you've actually been through it, it's a very strange sort of thing. And I think most people have. If you've ever like taken a weird hour and a half nap and you wake up and you're really disoriented and you don't know where you are and everything feels like a dream state, and you're sort of walking around in a haze for like a couple hours because it was like a weird sort of zonked out sort of nap. It's basically that feeling, but a lot more intense and just perpetual, like all the time. And it was scary for me. Definitely was not something I would want to live through again. And I think I've pretty much been able to deal with it. I think one of the main things at the time was, first of all, I wasn't really doing anything with my life. I wasn't pursuing much, and that was one thing. And then there's the other aspect, which was the concept of that I was completely separated from a concept of spirituality, right? I think during that time there was like this sort of spark of understanding about the universe, or like a sense of like existentialism, whatever you want to call it. And that was a part that really like off-putted me, about understanding that I'm going to die soon, that everything's sort of fleeting, and the concept of not existing was just such a bizarre concept for me that I eventually just sort of pushed it out of reality, and I stopped even being a part of this world, so to speak. It sort of kept pushing that way further and further. That was one aspect. And the other one, which was like the foundation of it all, really, was that I was just sort of not physically active, right? And I think that was like the most important thing that I would never really think of at the time. I was thinking of a lot of, deep depressing stuff about my own life, and how depressed and anxious I was about everything. And, one of the main solutions really was just to work out more. I would have called you an idiot because it's like I'm thinking about these things that are so complex to me, and the real solution is to just work out, because it's like when you work out, you become grounded, you become more in tune, you sort of step out of this sort of intellectual headspace and you become more balanced, right? And I think that's important if you want to be sort of mentally uh, what's the word? Cognizant, cognitive, whatever. You want to be cognitive. You want to have a foundation where your body is healthy, so that way your brain can sort of function properly. So you're not sort of off balance, right? And I think that happens to a lot of people, especially like you look at philosophers who are pretty damn out of shape, who they don't really have a grip into this reality, or they're also very depressed and manic and sort of cynical and sort of hate the world. And it's really just like a result of the fact that they've completely neglected moving their bodies. They've sort of stayed rigid and haven't moved their bodies. And even now, I don't really work out as much as I did. When I started working out more, I went to a weird boarding school. It was kind of like a military therapy school. And, I had to do a lot of exercise because sports were mandatory. So when I started doing that, I started getting in a lot better shape, and I started just feeling better a lot more. Like the derealization, it didn't like go away instantly, but it started to fade away gradually as I was sort of more in tune with life, more active, more social, more physical, more active, right? Which I think is an important thing. If people are experiencing a sense of derealization, a lot of the simplest thing you can do is just sort of go outside, go for a run, go walk, lift weights, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just so you can get your body moving. And I think that's a very important thing to do. I think another thing was that I was smoking a lot of weed also at that time when I was like around 16. Not a lot of weed, but like I would get really high, and that would sort of expedite the process a little bit. I think that kind of triggered something maybe in my mind, some hereditary thing, who knows. But yeah, it was just a weird time in my life. I pretty much spent a lot of my time watching movies and sort of living my life through the lens of someone else. And I don't think that was very healthy for me. I think movies can be very great for some people in terms of understanding different perspectives, but in terms of, understanding your own perspective and living your own life, that's probably a lot more important. Not probably, just kind of is. At least it was for me. So there's not really much else to talk about for this. I think a lot of these things are very different for everyone. Even if you're saying you have the same symptoms, the solution might not even be exercise. You might be already exercising. It might be something else. Everyone sort of has their own different quirk they need to work on. There might be a different ulterior I'm just bad with words today. There might be another ulterior cause to whatever you're going through, right? And you need to just sort of figure that out and work towards it. And it might come to you in a way where you think that it's a stupid solution. It might come to you and you think that this can't be real. But I think if you're wanting to be healthy, it's good to just be open, and don't think that the answer to these problems, because these problems are so big, don't think that the answer is going to be so big and complicated as well. It might be something incredibly simple. It might be just because it's like, oh, you eat too much dairy, you have like a lactose problem. That's the whole reason why you're existential about the entire universe. That could be a very like real thing that could happen to somebody, right? And sometimes people think it's like this big thing that they have to solve. Sometimes it's like just right in front of you and you never even realized it, and it's very simple. So anyway, that's all I have to say, and I hope you have a wonderful day.